I gotta watch a tutorial because I don't know what I'm doing. We've got a huge container, or box of beads right here. I've got some pliers. I've got literally everything on the side of me. I have string, I have everything. But we're not using new string. No. We're using my scrap string. If you don't keep your scrap string, you're crazy. Or you have a lot of cash. I mean, I have a lot of new string. It's just I want to use the scrap string first. Because I have a good amount. Like, look at this. Look at how much I have. That's a lot of projects, maybe. Regardless of what, I'm still using it. So I gotta get, I think, a yarn needle first. I have a lot of ball pit balls left over. I'll figure out what to do with that later. Where is my yarn needle? Didn't I have one last night? I swear I did. Oh, it's crazy. It's not in here. That's okay. We'll grab that in a second. Hold on. Let me pause that real quick. Where's the pause button on this thing? I have no idea. Alright, we're back. Give me 1 second. I gotta pull this up real quick. I'm gonna try to not use the tutorial because I want to try making it for myself, but I gotta see what they look like first because I kind of forgot. Okay. People are just putting the ball pit balls on by themselves? I did not know that. Okay, hold on. Dude. I just want to see the shape by itself. Hold on, where is it?
This is how I make my light up ball pit chains. First thing you're gonna want.
Nope, no volume. Okay, so they're poking a hole through the ball pit ball. Alright. Oh, this is easy! Okay. And I need jump rings. I have jump rings. Awesome. Okay. Alright, well, in the meantime, I'm gonna have something playing in the background while I work on this, and let's see how it turns out, I guess.
So you really like serial killers, huh? Alright, well, here's something you've probably never heard of. Ow. Now, when you think of the term serial killer, you probably wiggle your brain towards figures like Jack the Ripper, Ted Bundy...
Wait a second, wait. Where are my scissors? I can't do this without my scissors. I am very unprepared. I'm just not realizing that. I apologize so deeply to everybody watching this, though you guys probably don't really care. 1 second, I'm just gonna cover that real quick. Where are my scissors? Alright, we're back. I have obtained the scissors, so now I can start. Awesome. Back to the video.
Easy. Not everyone knows about those guys. History has a myriad of murders that have remained out of the spotlight. After all, humans have been going at each other in silly squabbles since the dawn of man. I say, your cock is bigger than mine.
Okay, wow. Alright, that was not what I was expecting. We're gonna... Yeah, there we go.
Worried about the
My
future?
bad, guys.
We already know the way forward. We are Pluralsight, the leader in tech learning. We're not closing the skills gap. We're shattering it. Creating a new generation of workers who master tech and accelerate impact. We don't fear the future, but instead transform it. The future of work starts with Pluralsight. All you have to do is tap in.
Totally wrong facts that people still believe. The flat earth fallacy. Okay, we all know that the earth is flat, right? I'm obviously joking, and I'll save the tinfoil hat for another day. But what I'm referring to isn't flat earthers in the modern day, but it's the flat earth belief that was held by people in the Middle Ages. Specifically around the time when Christopher Columbus took his infamous journey across the ocean. Obviously, during the Middle Ages, it was believed that the Earth was flat, and that if you were to sail too far in the wrong way in the ocean, you could literally fall off the Earth. And it was for this reason that Christopher Columbus wanted to prove these people wrong, and risked his life sailing the opposite way to India to prove that the Earth was round and not flat, going against the primary belief at that time. Now, what if I told you that everything you just heard about that situation is not true whatsoever? It is actually a rather popular misconception. Let me explain. While Christopher Columbus did sail across the ocean to prove a point, the point he was not trying to prove was that the Earth wasn't flat. The point he was trying to prove was that the Earth wasn't as big as some people suspected. It is historical fact that not only Christopher Columbus, but basically any educated individual during the 1400s knew that the Earth wasn't flat and was in fact round. And this knowledge dates back far before Christopher Columbus or even the Middle Ages entirely. Some of the first recorded suggestions that the Earth may be round actually date all the way back to the 6th century BC with the Greek philosopher Pythagoras. And later, in the 4th century BC, Aristotle even agreed and supported this theory, citing one personal observation that he noticed every time he traveled southward, southern constellations would be higher in the sky. But this, of course, wasn't the only evidence we had of the Earth being round. During this time, we also had recorded observations of lunar eclipses showing a round shadow on the moon from Earth, and of course, numerous eyewitness accounts of mountains seemingly growing out of the ground on the horizon as you approach them, or seeing a ship seemingly submerge into the water as it sails into the ocean. My point is that we've had a lot of evidence that the Earth is round, and it dates back far, like way before the Middle Ages and even way before the Common Era. But just to further validate this point, in the 3rd century BC, it wasn't just a suggestion that the Earth may be round. At this point, it was basically a known fact to anybody in the educated community. And philosophers and scientists were not so much focused on the shape of the Earth, but the size of the Earth. And potentially, most impressively, at this time, the head librarian of the Library of Alexandria, Eratosthenes, was able to estimate the circumference of the Earth with 99% accuracy. And while that estimate wasn't proven to be extremely accurate until much later, it still goes to show that there was a lot of evidence suggesting that not only was the world not flat very long ago, but that people were well aware that the Earth was not flat. Which brings us back to our original point. No, Christopher Columbus did not think that he was potentially going to fall off the world, and nobody who was educated or even slightly paying attention thought that either. And while seemingly flat earthers have existed in every era of history, they're as ridiculous today as they were back in 1492. Now, this next wrong fact I want to mention isn't even a wrong fact at all. It's honestly just a shocking truth. Did you know that basically all cloud storage services use your files to train AI and sell your data? That is, besides today's video sponsor, Proton Drive. Proton is trusted by over 100 million people worldwide, and Proton Drive specifically offers end-to-end encrypted files and photo storage. Proton offers privacy by default on all of their products. And what that means is that Proton protects your personal information and personal files from being shared with advertisers or being used to train AI or other third parties. I use Proton Drive because it allows me to store, collaborate, and share trust and grow assets with my team super easily. Just like other services, but with more privacy and security. Proton Drive has saved my butt on more than one occasion. Due to all the moving parts of my videos, file corruption is not a stranger to my production process. And there has been numerous times where file backups stored on Proton Drive were the only reason you guys got a video on time. So if you are looking for a secure way to store your files that are protected with end-to-end encryption, this Black Friday, protect your files. Sign up to Proton Drive for free using my link in the description. Thank you, Proton Drive, for sponsoring this video. So, what was the point of this entire expedition? Well, like I mentioned earlier, Columbus didn't believe the mainstream theory of how big the Earth was. And his goal with the support from Queen Elizabeth was not to prove that the Earth was round or not to see what was beyond the edge of the Earth, but to potentially find a more quick and efficient trade route between Europe and Asia to optimize international trade. And of course, we all know what happened from there on out, and well, here we are. So yeah, the suggestions from people in the Middle Ages believing the Earth was flat are actually modern misinformation, with this myth being brought to the mainstream in the 1700s and 1800s. And unfortunately today, stick figures on the internet still need to undo all of this misinformation. But in case you wanted a real misconception that was believed during the Middle Ages, I'll give you one. A lot of people during this time suspected that the sun rotated around the Earth. That was until Nicholas Copernicus came around and suggested that maybe the Earth rotated around our sun. And he did so not with observable evidence, but with a mathematical model that was not only hard to argue, but was eventually proven true. The Mount Everest Man. If learning that the Earth is actually round blew your mind, then this is about to shatter it. Everybody and their grandmother's grandmother knows that Mount Everest is by far the tallest mountain in the entire world. But what if I told you that actually wasn't the case? Now, before you think I'm lying, let me just confirm that yes, Mount Everest has the highest peak above sea level in the entire world. The peak of Mount Everest is 29,029 feet above sea level, and it is confirmed the tallest peak around the globe. But what if I told you that there was another mountain that was technically taller? If you're confused, don't worry, because I'm about to make it all make sense. Introducing Mauna Kea, a dormant volcano on the island of Hawaii. Looking at this mountain, it's relatively impressive, but only stands at roughly 13,800 feet above sea level, meaning that it's tall, but it's obviously not taller than Mount Everest. That is, unless you measured from base to peak. And this is where this technicality comes into play, because Mauna Kea is kind of like an iceberg, and there's a lot more than meets the eye. Specifically, the 20,000 feet of mountain that exists under the ocean. That's right, unlike Mount Everest, the base of Mauna Kea is submerged deep underwater. And it's for that reason that while from base to tip it is technically 4,000 feet taller than Mount Everest, due to the fact that most of it is actually underwater, it will unfortunately never claim the title of tallest mountain, simply because it has a pretty significant disadvantage of existing in an ocean. It's almost like you were 6'5" and you went to a tall guy competition, but in order to compete, you had to stand in a 5-inch hole, meaning that you were only 6 foot. And while the person you were competing was standing on flat ground and was only 6'1" tall, well, guess what? This other guy is technically taller than you, even if you have a few inches underground. But I have a feeling this one might be a bit controversial, so let me know what you think. Does anything below sea level not count, even if it is part of the mountain's base? Or is Mauna Kea an underdog that deserves more attention? Because realistically, base to tip, it is the tallest mountain in the entire world. I'll let you guys duke it out in the comments, but if you ever want to be the most annoying person in the world, next time you hear somebody claim that Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world, make sure to confidently and rudely tell them, no, actually, Mount Everest has the tallest peak in the world, but Mauna Kea is the tallest base to tip. And in case that doesn't kill the mood at the party, well, then just tell them how much you hate pineapple on pizza, because those people are annoying too. The hot-headed hoax. One experience I had when I was younger that I think we all share is the experience of being a kid and not wanting to wear a coat. There was just so many times where it was cold out, but I didn't want to wear a coat. I had no logical explanation. I just didn't feel like wearing that restricted device. But every single time, Mama Bro made me wear my coat and we went about our day. But it wasn't always a coat I was apprehensive to wear. Sometimes it was hats and gloves. Which brings me to the myth at play. My mom used to tell me that you have to wear a hat when it's cold out because 80% of the heat from your body leaves through your head. And for that reason, you need to insulate it to ensure you are fully warm. And I know for a fact my mom wasn't the only person to say that. And if I was a betting man, I would say that your mom probably did too. But whether it was a family member or a loved one or a friend or even just a news article, the reality is this. Your head is not some elusive chimney that is dead set on lowering your body's core temperature. But before we use facts to completely debunk this myth, let's actually trace back the origins of it. And it's not that long ago. The most commonly accepted origin of this myth dates back to the 1970s in a U.S. Army survival manual, where in that survival manual it claims that covering your head is a necessity in the cold because, quote, 40 to 45% of body heat is lost from the head. And while you think a U.S. Army survival manual would be a relatively reputable source for this sort of information, this is one thing they got wrong. But at this point, you might be asking yourself, where did they even get this number or this theory? How did they come up with 40 to 45% of your body heat being lost through your head? And well, those roots date back to the 1950s, where the U.S. military was doing tests on volunteers dressed in Arctic survival suits and were exposed to bitterly cold conditions. And the point of this test was to see where the body was losing most heat in these suits to better help optimize them. And during this flawed analysis, one thing that the scientists realized was that, most of the body heat in these volunteers is being lost through their head. But as you can see, these Arctic survival suits do not include hats, meaning that logically the head would lose the most heat, not because it is some crazy part of the body, it's just the fact that the head was not covered. And scientists who went back to analyze this data have even been reported to say, quote, if the experiment had been performed with people only wearing swim trunks, then they would have lost no more than 10% of the heat through their heads. And it's almost hard to believe that such a simple seeming logical fallacy would exist in such a professional place, a literal military survival test. But I suppose this one is overlooked. Because, yeah, if your entire body is insulated and only your head is exposed to the elements, your head definitely will lose the most amount of heat. Not because your head is vulnerable, but because the head was the only part that was literally exposed to the elements. So here's the facts. While it may seem logical that your head may be more vulnerable because of the lack of fat and the abundance of blood vessels, the reality is that heat escapes from all parts of the human body at a similar rate per square inch. And while in your own personal experience it may seem like your head is the primary source of your heat loss in cold weather, as we saw in the military test, it's not necessarily because your head is extra vulnerable, it's because typically your head is the least insulated with clothing. So yeah, is it a good idea to wear a hat or a toque on a cold day? Definitely. But is it because your head loses much more heat than the rest of your body? No, your head is just more vulnerable because most people aren't wearing toques all the time. And even if you are wearing a toque, it's very unlikely that you're insulating your head like you're insulating your chest, because you can put on a coat and insulate your entire torso. But unless you're wearing a balaclava and ski goggles, your head is always going to be less insulated. Not biologically, but by choice.
The cold conundrum.
Okay, since we're already on the topic of cold weather and stuff your mom told you, I figured this would be the perfect follow-up. And the follow-up in question is the interesting fact that you can get sick from being exposed to the cold. Logically, it makes sense. It's called a cold, you get it from being cold. What else is there to question? That is logical fact. But what if I was to be so bold to suggest that it wasn't the cold weather that was directly causing flu season to affect people? And I know it may sound blasphemous to your grandmother, but going outside without a hat or with wet hair isn't going to cause you to catch pneumonia. So what's the real scoop? Well, for starters, it's proven that you can't get an infectious or viral disease simply from being exposed to cold temperatures. However, you can get hypothermia, but that's different. So why do seemingly so many people catch colds or the flu as soon as the seasons start to change? There has to be something to it. And the fact of the matter is, there is something to it. But it's a lot more than meets the eye. You see, just because you don't...
A Chewy order is on the way for Hunter, who finds anything he puts his nose to. This holiday, Mom uses Chewy to save up to 40% on gifts that Hunter loves hunting down. For low prices, for holidays with pets, there's Chewy.
It's not easy being the one everyone counts on to keep your operation running. That's why at Granger, we're here for you. With professional-grade industrial supplies and fast delivery. Call quickgranger.com or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Everything changed when I tried Clip Studio Paint's 3D drawing figures. It's an incredible way to save time.
Style and substance. In the GMC-C era,
Yeah, I think that's good.
more current eligible GMC lessees can get this low mileage lease on this Sierra Elevation for around $299 per month.
Cole's mom. When my wife opened her gift last year, she made this face.
And you want her to make this face.
Exactly.
This is for this face. And this is for this face.
I would love that face.
Develop
Okay,
upon
weird.
first contact
What the heck?
with freeze doesn't mean that there's not factors at play
Right.
that cause the
Now that
typical
that's
flu
done.
season. And while temperatures getting cooler may be the most obvious and seemingly guilty
Okay.
culprit, it's really one of the least. And some of the more unlikely culprits are the following. Firstly, reduced vitamin D levels. Because as winter approaches, people are spending less time outside, the sun is seen less in most parts of the world, and as a result, your vitamin D levels are below what they should be. On top of this, during cooler months, overall air humidity is lowered, and it has been proven that lower humidity can increase your risk of rhinoviruses. And thirdly, rhinoviruses are typically spread through direct person-to-person contact, or by inhaling small droplets in the air, which is gross. But these things can only take place when you're coming in contact with people, typically in an enclosed environment. And during colder months, we typically spend more time inside, meaning that there's more risk of exposure. And when you combine all three of these factors all happening at the same time, it's not really hard to understand how more people could be more susceptible to diseases at a certain time of year, regardless of the outside temperature. So to settle the debate once and for all, does direct cold exposure cause you to get sick? No. But does every aspect of winter covertly try to get you sick? I would say yes. Meaning that just because you're safe from a cold breeze doesn't mean you're safe from a cold. Bubblegum bewilderment. Okay, admittedly, this entry is a bit less serious, but I think it's definitely the most universal, and call it a playground fact if you will, because I believe that almost everybody watching this video either believed or at least heard of this next fact, which is that if you swallow chewing gum, it will stay in your stomach for 7 years. Or, some variation of that. And if you've ever heard this, well, I'm about to give you the full scoop. And if you still believe this, well, I'm about to blow your mind. Obviously, because I'm talking about this in this video, the gum does not stay in your body for 7 years. It actually stays in your digestive system for over 20 years. That is a joke. It does not at all. You see, it is true that gum is indigestible. Your body can simply not break it down and process it. But that does not mean that your body can't pass it through. And believe it or not, you probably eat a lot of things that your body can simply not digest. And if you don't believe me, well, two popular examples are corn and sunflower seeds. And don't even get me started on indigestible fibers. Keep in mind, your body is resilient. And just imagine all the stuff that our ancient stomachs had to deal with. And just think about all the things your body had to deal with when you were a kid. Swallowing Lego and eating Polly Pocket pieces. Or possibly even often shoving those light bright things up your nose. Regardless, your
What?
body in one way or another is able to deal with pretty interesting situations. It is for that reason that gum in your digestive tract, at least on rare occasions, is not a concern. But it does in fact differ from standard digestion. Let me explain. In the context of normal food items, there is a 3-step process that every food must go through before it can be digested. First, your food must be, of course, chewed. And this chewing process not only breaks down food, but also increases its surface area, which is directly beneficial for the next step of the process, which is actually executed by your saliva. Your saliva covers these small pieces of food, and with its now increased surface area, your saliva's enzymes are able to break it down even further. And once the food is properly chewed and salivated, it is then sent to your stomach for the final stage of processing, where your stomach acid turns all of your food into a smooth mush that your digestive tract can easily pass through and absorb nutrients out of. And while this is the process for most foods, gum does not play by these rules at all. For starters, you can chew gum all day long, and the breakdown it's going to experience is minimal. And the vast majority of people will spit out their gum before it'll ever begin to break down into smaller pieces. But even if you did intentionally chew your gum into smaller pieces, it's not going to affect what happens in the next 2 stages. You see, chewing gum is made out of both natural and synthetic polymers. And it's for this reason that the gum cannot be broken down by either your saliva or your stomach acid. And that's honestly a good thing, because if your body was able to break down the polymers for your digestive tract to absorb it, you would get very sick. So be grateful it's kind of immune to those processes. But regardless, now that you have intact gum, not only in your stomach, but now in your digestive tract, what happens? Well, like any other food product, it'll slowly make its way through your digestive system, potentially getting caught up on the way, but eventually getting its way out, typically in 1 to 2 days. Although gum can be sticky, your body is designed to get rid of even the most stubborn of foods, and that includes chewing gum. But I will say this, even though chewing gum won't stay in your stomach for 7 years like you might have thought in the playground, it's not recommended that you start swallowing it en masse. And that's because if you do swallow enough chewing gum, you can develop something that's known as a bezoar, which is just essentially a blockage in your digestive tract, which can be painful, dangerous, and even deadly if left untreated. So no, chewing gum does not stay in your body for numerous years, although it's not recommended you try it for yourself.
The chameleon con.
I'm about to take you on an emotional roller coaster, but spoiler alert, it has a happy ending, so buckle up. We all know that chameleons can change color. That is their claim to fame, and I am not going to take that from them. That is an undisputed
I can't get that.
fact.
I don't know why I
But
tried
the thing
it.
that I will dispute is the fact that they do this for camouflage purposes. In almost every cartoon and TV chameleon we see, they are specifically changed.
We're done. It's stuck at the moment. This is what it looks like. It's not that great, but it's pretty good for a first try, I guess. I have no clue how long this took. Next time I go out after school or something, I'm gonna wear it. I think I made it long enough. It looks nice. And I still have extras left over, so if I do ever make another one, then we got that. I should have bought stars instead. But that concludes the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you had a nice time watching me do this. This is 23 minutes? Oh my god. Alright, bye.